Today, I want to take a few minutes with the time we have left together. I want to, in honor of Mom's Day, Mother's Day, I want to take a moment and talk about my mom. And the title of the talk today is What My Mom Taught Me. And if you have a phone, tablet, notepad, or pen or pencil, go ahead and get them out. Because I'm going to share 4 things that my mom taught me. These aren't the only 4 things my mom taught me. She taught me many other things. But for the sake of time and the setting that we're in, I boiled a lot of them down to 4 things. Now, many of you might not be aware, but my mom passed away 4 years ago this July. In fact, when we were moving from California in our U-Haul, we are now in Nevada making our trek across the country. I got the phone call that my mom had been diagnosed with cancer. Such a horrible moment on so many levels to be going in the opposite direction of where my mom is. And it was a moment, and I'll just put it that way. I'm in my U-Haul by myself, and I broke down in tears. And Candace is in the other car because we're driving 2 cars, and just had to talk for a long time. And some of you might remember, but for the first year of being in Greenville, I was flying back almost every month just to get as much time as I could with her, to contend for her miracle, but also to get time with her. And she eventually passed away, and it was an experience I hope I never have to experience again. But it was one of those experiences, and so today on Mom's Day, I want to take some time to honor my mom, but to let you know what she taught me. And I really wish you guys could have met her. Some of you have, but some of you hadn't. And I'm telling you, you would have absolutely loved my mom. She is spunky, she's wild, she's weird, she's eclectic, and she is a character, I'll put it that way. And I was so excited to show her Greenville. I was like, Mom, you're going to love this new city that we found. You're going to love what's happening there. And that never happened. And I remember when my dad first came to visit us, I asked him, I said, do you think Mom would have loved it here? She said, oh, she would have absolutely loved Greenville. And maybe she would have moved. I don't know, but who knows? But all in all, I want to take some time and just share a little bit. Can I do that today with you guys? Okay, I want to take some time and the first thing, I want you to write this down, is created space to become. Created space to become. When we were really little, I remember my parents telling us, I'm the oldest, I have a brother younger than me by 2 years, and then I have a sister that is 6 years younger than me. So myself, my brother, and my sister, 3 of us. And they would sit us down and they say, we don't want you guys to work during the summer. Because we want to make some money, and then we don't want you to work. We will figure out how to pay for all the things that you want to earn money for. We want you guys just to enjoy your childhood. So we don't want you to work, just enjoy your childhood. So summertime were really fun and special for us. And my mom she was our field trip guide. She would just take us everywhere. And we lived at the mountain. We lived in a small town of about 3,000 people. Our entire county was spread out, and only, I think, about 10,000 people in the entire county. So I'm a small town. I grew up in a town where the main industry, the 2 main industries was logging, was a lumber mill, or work for forestry. That was the main industry. Or you worked at the local supermarket. And for some reason, this supermarket had a very low attrition rollover rate. The same people that worked there in high school are still there. I'm like, wow, it's been a long time and you're still here. They must pay good. I don't know. But it was one of those things. And so I came from that kind of setting, but beautiful mountains, lakes, creeks, rivers, you name it. All the outdoor recreation was outside our back porch. And my mom would take it to the swimming hole. My favorite one was Little Paradise. It was the best rock jumping. We would pick blackberries. We just had the best summers. But the reason I'm framing this is my mom was brilliant at just creating space to become. She knew that the world would pressure us to be something they want us to be. And because of that, she created a parallel reality for us to learn who we are. And that's one of the things that she taught. My aunt, so my mom's sister, her name is Darla, she was a hairstylist. She cut hair for a living. So I got free haircuts all the time. And I'm creative, and I like to express, and And so I wanted a certain hairstyle. And I don't know how it inspired. I think I probably watched 3 or 4 movies and made an alchemy of hairstyle into one hairstyle. And I'm going to give you a description of this particular hairstyle that I envisioned for my future. And this hairstyle was, my sides are cut really tight, much like they are now, but I wanted razored lines on the side of my head. Anybody remember those? I know they're kind of coming back, or they're in. I'm not really sure where that's at. But I would can you give me 3 lines? So my aunt would give me 3 lines that would go back. Sometimes they wrap. So my sides were tight, razored lines. And then the top was kind of spiky, not long, but enough where you could spike it with gel. And then I had long bangs. just picture this in your mind. Just close your eyes and just envision the beauty that I'm describing to you. And I would have it covered alive. Now remember, there's no hair here, barely any hair here, but we had a lot of hair right down. It was beautiful. I was so proud of this hairstyle. But it gets better. You ready for the next part? So on the back, I had a long tail. No mullet. There was no hair here, just here down. And I think I got it up to like 8 or 9 inches, just a tail. So I had a long bang, tail, razored line, and guess who was all behind it? My mom was like, that's awesome. She loved it. She loved my hairstyle. I don't know if she really did, but I felt like she did. But what was she doing? She was allowing space for me to just become. Because she knew the world was going to pressure in ways that she knew. The world always pressured us, but my mom's voice was louder. My mom's voice was the loudest voice in my head when it came to finding out who God's created me to be. And then there came a point, and many of you know, I'm a pastor's kid, and 6th generation on my dad's side. So I've been around the church world for a few generations now. And there's a unique pressure that comes with that. Because you go into a church and there's just a unique dynamic. Expectations are very different on you. It's just a whole different set of situations. But I wanted to get my ears pierced. Now I know today, I don't know what it is today, but from my understanding, it's pretty chill. Back then, that was like, that ain't happening. And guess who took me to the beauty shop to get their ears pierced? My mama. That's right, she did. So we had to drive an hour into the really large metropolitan city of Reading, which was 90,000 people. And it was the big city. I grew up in a city of 3,000, but 90,000 felt like New York to me at the time. And we went to the mall. I mean, they had a mall. And we went in, and I got my ears pierced, and my mom was right there with me, probably paid for it and everything. Why am I sharing all this? My mom was brilliant at helping to create spaces to become. And I think this is really important. I think one of the things that we get to do as people is we get to create parallel realities for people to find out who they are without the pressure of the world. Second thing she taught me, I'm going to read a verse to you first. Romans 12, verse 1. Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. This is your true and proper worship. There was one point, I believe Candace and I were in our 30s. Our kids were a little older, but they were in junior high, is my guess. And we had been leading a large environment at the time and lots of dynamics. You know, you just have lots of stress, responsibility. You got all the weight of making decisions. And we were in a particular season that just required some big boy decisions. This is a tough season. We've got to navigate some things. So there are just so many things going on. And it's not just interpersonal, it's also relational, and how this is going to affect people, et cetera, et cetera. And we were just kind of in the grind of leadership and responsibility. And I remember talking to my mom about all of it. And if I remember correctly, I was kind of seeking some insight. Like, Mom, what do you think? And I'm laying all this is what we've done. We've tried this didn't work. We tried this and prayed about this and just kind of laid it all out. And I was kind of looking for some insight for an answer. And She gave me an answer, but it wasn't what I would wanted. But she gave me an answer. She looked at me and said, always worship. That's great, Mom. Love that input. It's not helpful right now. But I realized over time, she didn't give me a direct answer, but she gave me the most needed answer. Always worship. And it's interesting when we think about this, worship is essentially what she was telling me is you need to let go. You've done everything you know to do. You prayed, you strategized, had all the conversations. You've gone around it a few times. Now you need to let go. Worship, in its essence, is actually not about appeasing God to get him to do what you want him to do. Worship, in its essence, is us relinquishing control. You can tell an idol in your life by what controls you. Because whatever controls you is actually what you admonish and worship and has your heart. And she knew, I don't know if I knew it at the time, but over the course of time, I began to realize my mom knew that the human kryptonite was control. Did you know that our kryptonite as humans is control? Whenever we feel stressed, scared, angry, whenever we feel those emotions, the natural human response is to, I got to take control. So this stops and ends right here, or I get to control the outcome that I want. And my mom knew in a very uncanny way, my kryptonite is I want to control. And so in that moment, in fact, if I remember the story correctly, I think she grabbed me, looked me in the eyes, and she said, always worship. It's one of the most valuable lessons she's taught me. She taught me, Eric, there are some things you just got to stop trying and you just need to turn your attention to him. Because if you don't, control will become your new idol. And you may get what you want, but you'll lose him in the process. You lose the attention. You lose a part of who you're designed to be. In Romans 12:1, the passage we just read, and Paul lays out a few things. He's replacing, he's inverting what's happening in the old covenant into the new covenant. Instead of sacrificing of animals, now you sacrifice yourself. You give of yourself. You let go. And then instead of doing acts in the temple, now you're actually living a life of devotion to God. Instead of going somewhere and just doing acts, now your life is a devotion, an act of devotion. And then the final one is instead of external ritual that you do to God, now your entire life is an offering to God. And this is what Paul is saying, worshiping in spirit and in truth. He's offering this reality. There's another passage that I want to bring in about, actually I'm going to save that one for later. I'm going to go to another verse for you. Psalms 34 verse 1. I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall continually be in my mouth. So always worship is one of the other things she taught me. Some of you know my story. In 2018, I had a mental emotional breakdown. And part of my journey back to mental health and just spiritual health and just becoming a very different person after that breakdown was I had a playlist on my phone of specific songs, worship songs specifically. And I'm going to be honest with you, Lady Gaga made more sense to me in that season than any worship song. You think I'm not joking. I had a playlist of Lady Gaga. I could resonate with her song because it made sense of what I was navigating and being emotionally and mentally having a breakdown. Like, that makes so much sense, absolutely. But of course, that is just a mirror of what's happening in my soul. And so I had to develop this playlist that was worship, that was pulling me out of this. And so I know several people over the years have gone through breakdowns or just hard seasons. Where's that playlist? And so I thought, here it is. Here's my playlist that was a huge piece of helping me to come back to emotional, mental health, was always worship. The third thing she taught me was stealthy in prayer and generosity. The key word here is stealthy. Prayer and generosity are topics that we relate to. They're important, especially in our Christian faith, is that we are being a people of prayer and that we're generous. This is why we talk about generosity every week. You guys at the church just displayed practically generosity to two amazing moms over here. So we know that, but I want you to lock in with me on the word stealthy. My mom was incredibly stealthy. In Matthew 6:5, there's this verse that says, when you pray, you shall not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the corner of the streets, that they may be seen by men. Assuredly, I say to you, they have their reward. But you, say that with me, but you, look at your neighbor and say, that's you. When you pray, go into your room, and when you have shut your door, pray to your Father who is in the secret place. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you openly. Some translations say he will reward you, and there's a period. Either way, God will reward what you do in secret. And this is what's fascinating. My mom had this amazing ability to be stealthy. Lockheed Martin has a plane that flies at roughly 85,000 feet, which is double what most commercial airliners fly. And it traveled roughly 2,100 miles per hour. The impact of that plane, whatever that plane has been commissioned to do, by the time you feel the effects of that plane, it had already landed. And my mom was much like that. She flew high, she flew fast, and she left a mark. But by the time you realize what happened in your life, she's already long gone. There's something about this stealthy in prayer. And I want to take a moment and talk about praying moms and praying grandmas. Whatever they pray actually happens. We were parents, obviously, and we had kids in high school, and they were starting to date some boys. And I don't know about you, I don't have boys. I only have daughters, so I only know the feeling of being a girl dad. And it's one that's very protective and one that pretty much, I will kill you if you do anything to my daughter. It's very much still alive today. I have to restrain that so I don't end up in prison. And so this is the reality. I remember I was really navigating this, and I remember calling my mom. I said, Mom, what was it like this? I was telling her this feeling. Was it like this when you were raising us? Just not with you boys. You boys were like, we did it. Be respectful, be kind, be responsible. But with your sister, absolutely. And I said, well, that makes me feel so much better because I only have daughters. Like, I will do anything. And if anyone touches them, it's not good. And so they were dating boys. They were dating boys. They had boyfriends. And Kenneth and I were, you're just like, do they really need to be dating boys? And I mean, it's high school, I'm not going anywhere. What's the point? I mean, we were going through that naturally as parents. And I remember we went over to my grandma's house, my dad's mom. She passed last year. And we went to her house and we're processing with her. And she's just funny, witty, blunt, honest, and wise. And we're telling her about what we're navigating as parents. Say, what did you do when your kids, so be my dad and my uncles and aunts, what did you do when they were dating? It's just, I just prayed them away. You never talked to them? Nope, never talked to them once. I just prayed them away. Remember Candace going, nuh-uh. She's all, yep, I just prayed them away. So guess what we did from that point forward? We have prayed away boys. We have prayed a handful of boys away. Nope. Jesus, get rid of them now. They do not belong no, they were much kinder prayers, but that's essentially what it was. And I come to find out, my mom did the same thing with us. I didn't know this till just recently. She prayed boyfriends and girlfriends away, and she never talked to us about, well, I'm happy you have a boyfriend or not. She said, I'm just going to pray them away. There's something about stealthy prayer, and there's reasons why you can pray stealthy, and I'm going to get to that in just a few minutes. But I want to just bring your attention to this reality. She also taught us to be filled with joy when you pray. Yeah. To do it from a place of being happy. She eventually wrote a book called Happy Intercessor, which has become a very impactful book. Now, when you talk about joy in prayer today, it's much more common, but this was written in a time where, at least in our world at the time, where prayer meetings were really constipated. You know what I'm talking about? How many have been to those prayer meetings before? Just like really make the blood vessels pop and don't be happy. Be depressed. Because when you're depressed, it changes the world and somehow moves the heavens. I'm being sarcastic, obviously, because I saw you laughing. Just let that laugh out. I saw your face. How many know what I'm talking about? They're just, and my mom thought, you know what? She actually taught, and she said, I don't pray for anything until I know his heart for it first. Now, there is a space of prayer where you can just let out your anguish and discouragement. Well, that's between you and God. But when you talk about praying for something in your life that's not pertaining to you, praying for your family, your friends, for world situations, what's happening in your city, for your church, whatever it is, she said, I've heard her say this. I tell people, don't even begin to pray for this thing until you hear his heart for it first. And then pray that. And what she learned, that prayers are way more effective when you do it with a heart filled with joy. Because you realize, oh, this is how God sees it. I'm going to pray from that place. So my mom was incredible in prayer, and she was stealthy about it. In Philippians chapter 4, verse 4 through 6 reads this, rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say rejoice. Let your gentleness be known to all men. The Lord is at hand. Be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your request be made known to God. The idea in this verse of prayer and supplication is actually built around this idea of where Paul is saying, bring the weight that you're carrying, put it at the foot of the cross, and leave it there. And what we tend to do, we put it at the foot of the cross, then we pick it back up and bring it right back into our life. And my mom was brilliant. It was the discipline that she got so good at. I believe she mastered it in a way. She got so good at bringing those things before God, prayers and supplication before God, and left them there. She was religious about, no, we're not talking about that anymore. I left it there. Well, what do you think? Nope, done. Period. End of discussion. My mom was religious about that because she really believed we leave that to the cross and then we just trust in God. The other thing that really blew my mind, of course, as a son, I experienced her generosity. To be a mom, your entire life is one of giving. Your body is sacrificed. Your life is altered dramatically, all those things. So I experienced generosity, and I've seen my mom be generous to people, but I didn't realize the gravity, the quantity of how generous my mom was until she passed. And it was around her celebration of life. We had a big gathering, and we had to rent out the convention center, and a lot of people showed up. And I just had so many people in person, emails, DMs, texts, your mom did this, your mom did this. And I remember sitting there, it was after the memorial, and my family and I were having dinner at my brother's house at the time. And we were kind of just debriefing, reflecting on we spent 2 or 3 hours celebrating my mom's life in front of the world. And I remember looking at and said, Dad, Mom was so generous. And he even said, I know. I didn't realize it was that much. Like even he didn't know the depth. My mom was so stealthy. If she knew you'd like something that she had, she would find a way to get it to you in a very quiet, obscure way. I had one lady say, I told you, Mom, my mom loved purses. When she passed, my dad lined up all the purses. These are nice purses. My dad liked to spend money, and my mom loves purses. Really good combination. So we're talking very nice purses. And my dad lined them up and told all the granddaughters, take a pick. What's really cool is all of them picked the one that my dad thought should be for them. It's really cool. So, somebody told me, I told your mom one day, I said, I love that purse. Next thing I know, she gives it to me with a bunch of cash in it. Like this was just my mom. If she knew you liked something, she'd order it and have it sent to your house. And I story after story, but she did it in a way that no one knew. She was just stealthy. So that's the other thing she taught me, was stealthy in prayer and stealthy in generosity. The last thing for today that she taught me was trust in God, which explains all the above. If you had to create a Mount Rushmore and put the main tenets of the faith. If you had 4 options, 4 phases that you need to put, these are the main things of our faith that are qualified to be on the Mount Rushmore. One of them would be this: trust in God. The Bible is an endless story, an endless cycle of trusting in God, trying to take control, and everything falls apart. Trust in God, try to take control, everything falls apart. It's this endless cycle. It's human nature to come into the presence of God, trust in Him, give our life to Him. But over time, if we don't continually bring our attention back to Him, and we eventually move back into a posture, we can take it from here. And this is where things begin to fall apart. And my mom was brilliant at this. She knew how to trust in God. It was a discipline. In Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5 and 6, it said, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding, and in all your ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct your paths. In Matthew 6:25 on is where Jesus is doing the Sermon on the Mount, which many consider the greatest teaching or extension of teachings ever given. And the entire context of chapter 6:25 on is, do not be anxious about your life. And my mom was brilliant at that. She was brilliant at just simply trusting in God. If I had to sum up, for some reason I wanted to put a park bench with her name on it, with her when she was born and when she passed, and a quote, it would say something like this: Benny Johnson was a woman that simply trusted in God. Because she did that. She made it a point, I'm just going to trust in God. And this is why she was able to let go of being in control, being in charge, why she didn't try to manipulate, control situations. Her story is she tried for many years, then she had an encounter with God and realized, nope, God's got a better handle on this than I do. And I want to encourage you today with these 4 things. Create a space for becoming. Whether you're a mom, dad, or just a human being, what we get to do is create spaces for other people to find out who they are. If you sit down with people, and the challenge is, I'm so vision-driven, I'm like, oh, I know exactly what you... I have to hold that back. I want them to find out who they are in the process. And I can say today, there are things that I dreamed for my daughter that I never told them, or who they would be, or things that would eventually become important to them. I didn't tell them when they were younger. I just wait and just trusted in God. And I want to encourage you today in that. The next one is always worship. This is how we defeat the kryptonite of control. We always worship. We just worship and bring our attention back to Him. Then stealthy prayer and stealthy generosity. And to do it with joy. And the last and not least is trust in God. I'm going to read one final passage to you this afternoon. Jeremiah 17, 7-8 says this: Blessed is the man who trusts in the Lord and whose hope is the Lord. For he shall be like a tree planted by the waters, which spreads out its roots by the river, and will not fear when heat comes. Isn't that a great line? Isn't that a great line? Will not fear when heat comes. So even the writer knows heat's coming, but I don't need to fear because my roots are deeply rooted near His waters. It gets even better. You ready? But its leaf will be green and will not be anxious in the year of drought. It already knows drought is going to come at some point, but I don't need to be anxious about it. Why? Because I'm rooted deeply. I can't help but to wonder. God is helping us to take our roots deeper in who He is and trusting in Him. If you're feeling anxious about what's happening right now, or anxious about what's going to happen or what's coming, a drought in your own spiritual life or just on this world, I mean, it doesn't take much to find out everyone's perspective on the future of humanity. If you find yourself full of anxiety, I want to tell you what, the solution is this: anchor yourself deep in the waters of God. It removes fear, it removes anxiety. So why don't you stand today?